And I found it really interesting because the witness had written a statement for him, and she had said, he's my friend and I know he's not racist.
Okay, cool. Let's just get it started, and I guess more and more people will join as we go on. So I don't know if any of you guys know me personally, but my name's Gina, and this is my friend Jen. And sort of behind the scenes, we talk a lot about sort of like the uncomfortable and sometimes quite comical situations that happen in the workplace. And we thought, just given the current climate, we would bring this to we would bring this to the live. So Jen, do you want to just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and like what you do for a living.
Yeah, so my name's Jennifer. I work in advertising. So I've worked in advertising for about, I think, 12 years now, and I work more on the management side as opposed to the creative side. So a big part of my role is presenting creative concepts to our clients. So I work with our designers and our copywriters and our website builders, and then I will take their concepts and present that to the client. So a big part of my job is client facing, and a big part of my job is client relationships, and just making sure that we keep that good relationship with our client, basically.
Mm-hmm. So I guess during this period where there's like a lot of emphasis on Black Lives Matter, and I guess there's what I've noticed, there's definitely been more conversations about racial injustice and stuff like that. I don't know if that's made it to any of your conversations whilst at work, if you've seen like a change in the dynamics or anything like that.
Well, I think when this first happened, like I expressed to you separately, I was a little bit taken aback because nothing was really mentioned at work initially. And just to give a bit of context, my company is global, but my particular office is based in London Bridge. In my particular office, there are about 250 people. And in my team, I would say there are about 15 people. In my overall office, I would say that there's probably about maybe 6 or 7 Black people out of 250 people in total. In my overall team, which spreads across different departments, design, creative, strategy, I would say in my team, I'm the only Black person. So there's about 15 of us on my particular team, and I am the only Black person. So during this time, nothing was actually mentioned by anyone, and I found that quite stressful, because obviously I was finding this very overwhelming. Yet again, we've seen a Black person being killed for being Black, on top of trying to deal with a pandemic. I was finding it very overwhelming. Yeah. And I found that at the beginning of lockdown, my manager was saying, you know, if anyone needs to talk about anything, if anyone's struggling, then just let me know. But then when this whole George Floyd, Black Lives Matter movement started, there was no kind of word. There was not even like a check-in. Like, he didn't explicitly have to say, Jennifer, how are you doing? There was literally no check-in, almost like no awareness that there was anything going on at all. And every conference call was just like, how was everyone's evening? Everyone was catching joke with each other.
Everyone was just carrying on as normal.
Basically, everyone was just carrying on as normal. It came across to me like they weren't even aware of what was going on.
Right. To be fair, initially when it started, I didn't have any expectations of my manager or anybody reaching out to me, but I know excuse me, I know that a lot of people's team members and things like that, people have been reaching out to them. But would you have wanted your manager to say something, or what would you have wanted him to say?
I would have wanted my manager to say something, similarly to the way in which when COVID happened, he reached out to me and just said, how are you doing? And then he said to me, do you live alone? And I said, I do. So he was like, yeah, that must be quite difficult. So even if he hadn't explicitly said, how are you doing in regards to George Floyd's death, just like a check-in, just how are you doing? There was none of that. It was literally just business as usual, and everyone just kind of carried on. And the only time it was mentioned was when someone one of my colleagues then made a joke about the Black Lives Matter movement, made a really insensitive joke. And it was at that time I pulled him up, and I pulled up the whole team for staying silent whilst he made that joke. And it was only at that point that it was acknowledged.
So Mecca, we're gonna touch on that in a bit. Mexi, is that your friend Mecca?
Mecca, yeah.
Mecca, sorry. So he has asked, was there a statement from your company or your CEO or your company CEO?
There was a statement, but I learned today that another Black colleague of mine sent an email to the CEO and to
Mm.
HR and basically complained as to why no communications had gone out.
Oh, I
So I,
see.
so I did see an email go out, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure if that went out after another Black colleague complained.
yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, Emeka, there was a statement, and in the statement they said that they gave our stance on
Hmm.
equality, and then they said they're consulting the diversity and inclusion team and will be back to let us know if there's going to be anything put in place. And that
Would
was
you have
it.
wanted something more from your CEO? Was that statement okay? Like,
To be honest, at the time the statement was okay because I was glad that it had been acknowledged.
yeah, okay, cool.
After hearing that somebody had made a complaint about there not being a statement, which could have actually been the reason why there was a statement, now I kind of feel a
Hmm.
bit icky about it. But I'm glad that it
Yeah,
was acknowledged at least.
yeah. Outside of the current climate, how have you found working in a team where are you the only, so you said you were the only black person, but are you the only person that's a minority? Are there any Asian people? Are there any Chinese people? Anybody? Do you see what I mean?
So on my team, I'm the only
Hmm.
person of color. So I
Right, okay.
don't work with any Asian or anyone else. I'm the only person of color within the
Right.
agency as a whole. Like I said, probably maximum 10 Black people, some Asian people,
Yeah.
but they're few and far between.
And your team, are they British? Are they European? Like, what's the
Um,
dynamic?
I would say they are 95% British English,
Right. Hmm.
and then there's a couple of Americans.
Okay, cool. So I know that we were like, you touched on a bit about somebody making an insensitive comment about Black Lives Matter movement. I don't know if you just feel comfortable enough to share it, just let people
Yeah,
know what happened.
yeah. So basically, we had an email go out last week Thursday
Yeah.
from our global CEO, which was
Hmm.
basically saying, in light of everything that's happening in America, bear in mind we're an American company, so bear that in
Hmm.
mind. So in light, so
Right.
we've got New York offices, we've got offices around the world. So an email went out on Thursday explaining that in light of everything that's happening, we are being given Friday off work,
Oh,
and
right.
it's
Okay.
and it's being called a day of healing.
Hmm.
So it was a really,
One day.
really long email. Yeah, one
One day.
day. One
Yeah.
day. So it was a really, really long email, and it was kind of reiterating our stance that we are all about equality. This is really affecting some of our clients, and
Hmm.
therefore we should use this Friday to kind of look after our mental health, which I personally really
Yeah.
appreciated. Bear in
Hmm.
mind, this was not my UK CEO. This was the
Yeah.
American CEO that sent out the email to everyone. Our
Okay.
head office is in America. So what he says goes, basically. So he sent out this
Hmm.
email. Um, and then following the email, I had a team call.
Yeah.
So
Same
bear
day.
in mind, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So the email was sent early hours of the morning, and then my
Hmm.
team call was at 10:30 in the morning. Bear in mind, this is the Thursday after Black Tuesday.
Right.
So on this call, we've got an executive creative director, we've got a business director, I'm an account
Hmm.
director, and then I've got senior managers that work into me, and then we've got like juniors that work up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a broad team. There's a lot of senior people on the team
Hmm.
within this call. So on this call, we were discussing the fact that we have been given Friday off. And my
Yeah.
manager was saying, like, is this going to interfere with anybody's workload? Is this going to be an
Hmm. Hmm.
issue? Blah, blah, blah. And then somebody else made the point that the email that came from the CEO was a really long-winded email. And they were basically saying, like, it was such a long email just to say that we've got the day off tomorrow. And someone suggested, why didn't he just put in the subject line, you've got tomorrow off, rather than sending streams and streams of words only for us to
Yeah.
get to the bottom. to get to the gist. So I could kind of see where they were coming from, because it was a very, very, very long email, and you had to
Yeah.
kind of read it and navigate it to figure out what he was getting at.
Mm-hmm.
So someone was like, it was such a long email, such a wordy email. He could have just kept it brief. He could have just said, you've got tomorrow off. And then another senior member of the team chipped in and said, or maybe he shouldn't have even bothered sending us an email at all. Maybe he should have just sent us all a black square.
Yeah.
And when he said it, I kind of froze. And when he said it, I saw another person on the call, like, put her hand over her mouth, like to say, like, oh shit. But no one said anything. No one said anything. Bear in mind, we're on a video call. So there's a sea of faces, probably about 12 of us. I'm the only black face. You can see I'm on this call, and you felt absolutely no way to make jokes about maybe we shouldn't bother send each other emails. Maybe we should all just send each other black squares. So I was so taken aback. And in this call, we all have to give an update of our projects. So I was waiting for my turn to speak, but I could feel my heart pounding, and I could feel my face burning because I was vexed. So then it got to me to kind of say, like, give an update of my project. So I gave an update of my project. And then the call ended.
Yeah. Shocking. To be fair, that's shocking's not even the word. It's like, it's so insensitive that it's like, there's no words. There's no words for it. And in all of my experiences, I think, like, I don't know what it is, but it seems like the industry that you work in seems to be so much more, what's the word? They care so much less about diversity, about inclusion, about all of the others that are outside of their circle. And every time you've told me about things that happen at work, I just find it so shocking, and it never becomes normal. Every time you tell me a story, it's like they up the levels a bit more. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, so nobody said anything. You obviously were shocked.
I was shocked, and I was really taken aback, because bear in mind, no one has said anything about the Black Lives Matter movement at all. Bear in mind, it's been a really heavy week. I'm stressed, I'm tired. During that week, I had insomnia because there was so much happening. There's so much to process. We're already on lockdown. We're already shut down. Now there's people being killed on the street. A lot of things on social media were really triggering. So it was just a really heavy week. And I just thought, like, instead of people to kind of be sensitive towards this situation, you're here making jokes. You haven't even acknowledged that this is all going on. The only time you acknowledge it is
to make light of it, to make a joke.
So after the meeting, I sent an email, and I sent an email to the whole team. So it included every senior person that was in that meeting. It included everyone that was in that meeting. And I sent him an email. So I said, hi, X. I just want to flag.
You don't want to name and shame.
Yeah, I said to him, I just want to flag that I found your comment on our conference call extremely inappropriate. And then I said, the comment that I am referring to is the comment you made when you said that Harris shouldn't have bothered sending us an email. Instead, he could have just sent us a black square. And I said to him, this Black Lives Matter movement might be something insignificant and jovial to you, but for some of us, this has been an extremely testing and challenging week. So please bear it in mind in future. And then I said, I'm also extremely shocked that nobody else on the call said anything. And had I not been so shocked myself, I would have called you out there and then. And then I left.
How did you feel after you sent that email?
I felt like that was the right thing to do, and I felt good that I had done it, because I feel like with everything that's going on, if you think about all the things that are on social media, people that are protesting, in some sense that's at a macro level. So we're putting things out there, we're putting things in our stories, but what are we doing in our at a micro level? Because if I'm saying on Instagram Black Lives Matter, then how can I sit on a conference call and let someone make a joke
A
and not stand up
hundred,
for myself?
110%, 100%. I
I
totally
kind of,
agree with that.
exactly. I feel like it invalidates everything that we're doing if at a micro level we're just going to be silent when we see injustice or when we see something
100%.
wrong.
No, I totally
Um,
agree with that. Yeah,
yeah.
I totally agree. Hodan asked, what was the reply? So after you sent that email, what were people's responses?
So my business director, who's my direct report, I report directly into him, and he heads up our whole team. He messaged me and said, "I didn't hear this comment. I'll give you a call in 5."
Lies, lies,
Now,
lies.
exactly. Now I know he heard the comment because I looked at him as soon as the comment was made and he laughed. So I know he
He
heard the comment.
laughed.
He laughed. Everyone laughed. But with some people it was an uncomfortable laugh, and other people it was just a laugh because it was a funny joke. So he said to me, "I'm going to call you." So he called me, and he was like, "Jen, I didn't hear what was said on the call, but had I heard, I would
Mm.
have stepped up.
Missed
I
that.
would
If
have."
I was there, I would have backed it.
Exactly. That if I was there, I would have backed you. So he was like,
Yeah.
if I'd heard it, I would have backed you. If I'd heard it, I would have called it out. And then he then started to talk about the man who had said it. So he was like, Jen, he really respects you. He respects you as a person. He respects you as a director. He literally just called me, and Jen, he's in pieces. Jen, he's in absolute
Mm.
pieces. It
Mm-hmm.
was a joke, and it was kind of taken out of context. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's acceptable, but he's in pieces, and he has asked me if he can call you.
Ah, because is he afraid of you?
I mean, because prior to this, we were on conference calls. Prior to this, we've worked on one-on-one projects. So I'm not clear on only now he's trying to get permission to call me via my manager.
I find this a lot actually. So I've had a few situations where I've spoken out and it seems like the person who I'm speaking out against, their feelings seem to take priority. So
100.
even though they've done something that is not cool, I'm supposed to somehow make them feel better. Like it's my
Yeah.
duty now to make them feel better. And
Yeah.
like when you told me this story initially, it reminded me of a time when I worked at an investment bank when I was 23, 24 years old. And I had a manager who I felt like I felt like she treated me differently to my colleagues. So I was the only black woman, I was the only black person actually on my team. And I felt like she definitely treated me differently. So I thought to myself, instead of making this an emotional thing, let me just keep it purely like purely factual. And let me think about, factually speaking, like what is it? What evidence do I have to support how I feel? So I took this to HR. So as an example, there was one lady who had essentially a dual role. She said the work was too much. So they said, Gina, can you take on the role that essentially she doesn't have the capacity to do? I said, fine. So my manager brought me into a meeting and she said, look, you're going to be having this dual role now. When you are at capacity, reach out to the other ladies within the team and essentially give them some of your work because it's a lot for one person to do. Fine. So when I reached out to them, because I was at capacity quite quickly, when I actually reached out to them, I said, look, I can't do this by the end of today. Can you guys do it? Because I'm really busy. And their response was, we're all busy, Gina, so you can do it yourself. And so I thought to myself, okay, cool. I went and spoke to my manager about it. My manager was like, oh, sorry, I forgot to tell them that you were going to be handing over some of your work. Cool. Let's just let that go. We'll let that go at all. I had, when you have like your one-to-one meetings?
Mm-hmm.
So during one of my one-to-one meetings, one of my targets for the quarter was to make no mistakes. Even as I say it, I just think to myself, you're asking me to be a superhuman. So for the next, 4 months? For the next 3 months, sorry, one of my targets, is to make absolutely no mistakes. This is stupid to me. So anyway, obviously I didn't hit that target because that was dumb. So there was a few other little things that would happen in the office. So for example, I'm not going to go into it, but I had something up with my health during that period. And so I would work from home. Understandably, I'd work from home more than my colleagues. But my manager has told my colleagues why I'm ill. So she's told them the details. So only my manager and HR know. But I'd be walking back into the office and someone would pull me to one side and be like, oh, Gina, we heard about X, Y, and Z. So I'm thinking to myself, right, you're taking the piss now because you're breaking my confidentiality. So, okay, cool. I go to HR and I've got maybe like 6 or 7 different points, like specific points that I'm trying to raise with HR. And HR said to me, I don't think that your manager is singling you out or treating you any differently. Bear in mind, she's not, let me just explain something to you. She's not, this HR lady does not work on the floor that we work on. She works elsewhere. She works on a different floor. But she's telling me that she doesn't think that my manager is treating me any differently. Okay. She then proceeds to tell me she knows my manager very well, and she knows my manager wouldn't do something like that.
Her and your manager, Prejudice. Yeah.
They're mates, and she knows her friend, and her friend wouldn't do something like that. Okay, and then she was like, so do you want to have like some, I think it's called like mediation or something like that before you raise a grievance? I think that's how the process goes. And I thought to myself, why? So you and your friend can sit down and tell me that I'm overreacting. Why would I do it? Like, am I a joke? Am I an idiot? So I was like, no, it's fine. I just started applying for another job. So I end up getting another job. I bring my team into like the town hall area and I tell them, guys, so I'm leaving. And it was radio silence. They just looked at me like this.
What?
They literally just looked at me. And then one lady was like, who I'd already told I was leaving, she was like, oh, where are you going to? I was like, oh, I'm going to a tech company. And she was like, okay, cool. So I was like, so my last day will be such and such. And they were just like, literally, no, I'm not even exaggerating. They were just looking at me like this. So I was like, all right, well, yeah, I guess we'll go back to work. And they just got up and went back and sat down. And I just thought to myself, screw you guys. Screw you lot, because like I'm glad I'm leaving, like good riddance to all of you guys. It was just, that was probably like, I wouldn't have even told them, just sent them. Do you know what it is? Yeah, I just think to myself, like at that time I was like 23, 24 years old, and so I didn't really know. I wasn't really, I didn't have that vim that I have now to be like, are you lot okay? Like, did you hear what I said? Or I didn't have that confidence to call people out. So I just sat there and I just thought to myself, like, this is mad. When my actual last day, came, one of my colleagues who I was quite cool with, she came and brought a cake, like a little cupcake for me and a card. And literally, like, my team, not all of my team, I'd say about 60-70% of my team just continued working. One of them had his back to me, like, so I'm sitting like this, people are sort of around my desk giving me my card and stuff like that, and he's literally sitting here with his back to me, and I know he can hear me. I know he can hear what's going on, and he's just sitting there just thinking like, just F this girl, like whatever. And I just thought to myself, like, these are the stuff that we have to deal with, and then still go to work the next day and smile and be polite and stay in line and not say anything that's just a little bit too off, just in case you ruffle people's feathers. And I just thought to myself, like, this is actually ridiculous. So I left, and to be fair, after that, I think that was probably the worst period when it came to like microaggressions in the workplace. Or this was the same workplace because I had really short hair. I'd cut my hair off, so I had a really short, like, it wasn't even a bob, it was like a pixie cut. And obviously, no, they didn't sign the card. There was like 4 people that signed the card. And I had, a short pixie cut. And obviously, you know what black women are like. Today we've got pixie cut, tomorrow we've got an 18-inch weave. That's just what we do, yeah? So I came in, the weave wasn't even that long. It was literally like 12 inches with a fringe. best believe one of my colleagues was like, "Oh my gosh, how do you do?" And she this was coming towards me. She went to go and maneuver her hands inside of my tracks, and I thought to myself, "Am I a circus animal? Can you take your hand off of me? Like, what do you think this is?" I'd bring my lunch in. "Oh, Gina, what have you got for lunch today? Oh, that smells nice. It's fish, guys. It's fish and it's couscous. Like, let me eat in peace. Like, I'm not here to perform for you. Let me just eat my lunch in peace. Let me wear my wig in peace. Like, leave me alone. Leave me. Let me be." It's just, it was too much. And I think especially during this period, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I feel like more and more of these stories are coming out.
Yeah. Definitely. Like, I've seen a few dedicated pages on Instagram where it's just like a safe space, yeah, for people to talk about these stories. But just to follow on from what you were saying about your food, your hair, I think for me, that's one of the biggest challenges. It's the challenge that whatever I do that is natural to me is so different to them. And I feel like because I'm the only one, it's a big deal. So one time I got my locks redone and I got them done into like a little style. So like it was kind of flat twisted against my head. As soon as I came in and sat down at my desk, people actually just walked over and touched my hair. And someone said to me, "What's the official name of this hair?" And I just feel like, can't I just come into the office like everybody else? Can't my hair just be hair? Does it have to be a huge commotion when I've walked in a hairstyle? If I've got food, everyone comes over and says, "Oh, that smells nice. What have you got there?" But no one's asking anybody else what they've got. And it's just tiresome, and it grates on you, and it makes you feel different. You know you're different already, but these things highlight you and make you feel different, and it's exhausting.
But also, I don't know if you ever experienced this, but I felt like so outside of work, I would still think to myself, okay, cool, if I'm going to get my hair done this weekend, how can I get it done so that it doesn't create that much of a commotion and I just think to myself, that is not okay. That is not okay. So now you guys are messing up my weekdays and now you're influencing what I do in my personal life. Like, it's just a bit much. I remember actually, so I've got locks now, but when I had like my loose curly hair, I was in the office. This is when I had more vim, and I was just like, do you know what? Anyone can get it. Like, I don't care. So then, so I come in. I had my hair like slicked up into a bun, up like this, and like my hair was out at the top. Everyone was like, "Ooh, wow, amazing!" It's a ponytail. Just like relax. So then, I come into the office. I sit down. I've got a colleague beside me and she's like, "Oh, your hair looks lovely. Can I touch it?" And I was like, "No, you can't touch it." She was like, "Oh, don't, come on, Gina, can I touch it?" "No, you can't touch it." And then they said, "Don't be like that." And I thought, oh, so this is my problem then, that I don't want you to touch my hair. I'm the one that's being unreasonable here. Cool. So then I was like, "I don't want you to touch my hair." And then they asked me again. I said to them, "I'm not going to say it again. I don't want you to touch my hair." So then we carried on working. And the lady that was here, "Miss, can I touch your hair?" Walked past me and kind of like, when, you know, like this kind of a thing with my hair as she walked past. So I thought, Gina, it's time to put your GCSE drama to work. So I was just like, I was like, "Excuse me, you've just pulled my hair?" And she was like, No, I didn't. No, I didn't." I was like, "I asked you not to touch my hair, and now you've walked past and you've pulled my hair." And she was like, "No, I didn't." I was like, "But I asked you." She was like, "I just brushed past it." I was like, "But I nearly said her name. I said to her, "But I asked you not to touch my hair though. So whether or not you brushed past it, you pulled it, whatever you did, I asked you not to do it." So she was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then she carried on. She went and did whatever she was doing, filing or whatever. And she came back and so she's sitting here. She kind of like leaned over to me. She was like, "You really embarrassed me earlier when you said that I pulled your hair." And I was like, "I'm sorry, but that's not my problem because I asked you not to touch my hair. You can sit with your embarrassment if you want to, but this is not my problem. Next time somebody tells you not to touch them, maybe you'll listen." But I think after a while, I just thought to myself, like, nah, when my colleagues are just like, "Oh, you and so-and-so look alike," I'll be like, "Oh, why do you think that?" What about us two is the same?
The thing is, I feel like we're at a point now, especially as Black people, where we need to call things out. Like I said before, it's all good posting things on social media, going to this protest, that protest. All of that is very good, but that's all macro level, and that is all very easy to do. But it's our
Mm-hmm.
day to day. It's when people it's the microaggressions, it's the
Yeah.
touching hair. Oh, she not to touch my hair. It's the talking over me in meetings. It's the taking me to a meeting and forgetting to introduce me to my client. It's those types
Mm.
of things. They need to be called out. And I feel
Yeah.
like us, our generation specifically, I feel like we are more vocal and we're
Mm-hmm.
tired. We're fed up. We've seen how
Yeah.
tired our parents are and we're not doing it. We're not getting to that point.
Yeah.
We're tired.
Just I was thinking that I think for those people who aren't comfortable calling things out directly, one thing that I've done is just ask people to explain their ignorance to me. So, for example, there was this lady who said to me, so when I didn't have locks, when I had my hair out, she said to me, "Oh, your hair's really lovely." She was like, "Oh, you must know." No, she said, "Oh, I'm going to introduce you to a lady in the Birmingham office. You two would probably get on really well because you have the same hair."
Mm-hmm, of course.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, because we have the same hair. And she's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was like, so you think I'll get on with her because we have the same hair? She was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll introduce you guys. Don't worry, I'll introduce you. You guys will get on so well. And I was like, oh, do you do that with other people as well? Hmm? Call people out on the, get them to explain their stupidity to you. Hopefully, if they hear it out loud, they'll realize how dumb it sounds. When they hear how stupid they sound, yeah, hopefully it will change, hopefully. But anyway, this lady, she proceeded to go on and send an email introducing us. The lady was called Shalisha, so we can just make an assumption there. And yeah, so she thought we'd get on really well. We don't know anything about each other. We don't work in the same department. We don't have the same interests. It's just I happen to be a Black woman in London, and she happens to be a Black woman in Birmingham, and somehow we're kin because we both have curly hair. Like it's really stupid. But for those people who aren't, they don't want to get on an email, they don't want to call people out during a meeting and say, that was inappropriate. Just ask people to explain the ignorance. If somebody says to you, well, if somebody makes a racial comment and says, well, you know what X type of people are like, I'll be like, oh, what do you mean? Oh, I'm not sure what you mean. What do you mean? And if they're like, oh, go on, Gina, no, no, I don't understand what you mean. Play just as ignorant as them. Ask them to explain their stupidity to you, and hopefully, like, it will either silence them or they'll go and find somewhere else to do it. Because it's true what you were saying. There's no sense in us doing all of this. Well, I don't want to say there's no sense in it. It's all well and good us protesting, but if day to day we stay silent, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense at all. Have you found as well that like people assume that your surname is like your own? Does that make sense? So my surname's Scottish, and I've had so many awkward conversations with people in the office who think I'm actually Scottish. And I feel like this is a good educational moment to tell people that, like, I'm not Scottish, but this is the name that was given to my ancestors because they were bought by a Scotsman. That's why I have a Scottish surname. So, like, do you want to talk about this over lunch? Like, it's such an awkward. It's so awkward. There's a guy that I work with who's like Scottish, and there was like a national holiday or something a few weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh, didn't you celebrate blah blah blah?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Oh, did he say you're letting the Scots down, or this is something you should be celebrating?"
So they're actually Scottish. I thought you meant people that hadn't met you but had only met you over email.
No, people who've seen my face. They've seen all of my face. They've seen I remember when I did my ancestry DNA, and it said like I was like 3 or 4% European, and the lady opposite me was like, "Ooh, what was your grandmother doing then?" And I thought, well, wouldn't you like to know? Let's talk about what your grandfather was doing. How about
exactly. Yes, to be fair, I've not really experienced that, but what I have experienced is because my surname is very British sounding, that people are surprised that I'm Black. And additionally, I have been told that I don't sound Black. So sometimes, so in my job, it's very common that actually don't meet the clients that I work with. So
Yeah.
we do a lot of conference calls, a lot of emails, but don't necessarily meet each other. So I can work with a client for a year,
Mm-hmm.
and never actually meet
And
them.
never meet them, yeah.
Yeah. And I've had an incident where I went to go and meet the client. I went to the reception area. I gave them my name. They gave me a lanyard. They called down the person that I'd given as my contact. She came down and walked straight past me and just kept looking around. And then I was like, I called her. Her name was Jasmine. I called her and I was like, I recognized her. And I was like, it's me. It's Jennifer. And she was like, you're Jennifer. You don't look like a Jennifer.
Mm. See, and these are the types of things you'd be like, oh, what did Jennifer's look like?
Yeah, exactly. So I said to her, don't I?
Yeah.
What do Jennifer's look like? And she was like, no, I just never would have thought. She was like, it's, and then she changed the subject and she was like, it's really funny putting a face to a name. But yeah,
I mean, what kind of face? What kind of face to what kind of name? So
exactly.
we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I definitely think that if you see something in the workplace, if you're not comfortable calling it out, find another way. But I think we have to be forward thinking. We have to think about the generation that are going to come after us, and let's make the working environment a better place for them. So let's not have all the conversations that Jen and I are having. I'm praying that the generation like that are following us don't have to have these same conversations. It doesn't have to be awkward. We don't have to have a discussion in the office, which I've been in, about why calling Black people coloured might be offensive. But I just think like in anywhere from sort of 2018 onwards, we really, really should not be still having these conversations. It's so inappropriate and it's so insensitive. But yeah, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say, or any other stories.
Well, I have multiple stories.
Yeah, you do.
I have multiple stories, and some of them haven't really ended well. And I think a huge part of the reason why they haven't ended well is because I've had no one within the workplace that can kind of support or represent me. I've had no one in higher places. I've had no senior management that look like me. I've had no HR that look like me. So I have had a few incidents. I tend to kind of pick my battles. I tend to kind of think, can I be bothered to take this further? There was an incident I had a few years ago, which some of you may have seen in my story, where I mentioned that I worked somewhere and a colleague of mine called another colleague a black bastard. And I reported that to HR, and essentially I ended up getting in trouble by HR.
Yeah,
the whole meeting completely backfired on me. The whole meeting was completely turned onto me. So just to give you a bit of like to set the scene, the guy who called another guy a black bastard, him and I did not get on. He had made it very clear that he did not like me, and he said that the reason he didn't like me was because he felt that I had been given a promotion that I didn't deserve. So bear in mind, me and him were now on the same level. When I was hired, I was one level below him, and then I got a promotion and I was now on his level, and he didn't like it one little bit. So he would do a lot of malicious things. Like if I sent an email and it had like a typo in it, he'd respond to all and correct my typo. Or if I made an error, he would take it upon himself to tell my manager that I had made an error. Me and him did not work on the same team. We were the same level, but I managed one team, he managed another team. We had nothing to do with each other, but because our project would sometimes cross over, I would sometimes keep him in CC in emails. So if I made a typo, if I made any form of mistake, he would always put it in writing, circulate it to the whole team, make it clear that Jennifer's made an error, or if I say something in an email and someone queries what I've said, he'll respond and say what Jennifer was trying to say was X, Y, and Z. And he just was not a nice person. And I remember one time I walked into the office and I was wearing like a fitted dress. And as I walked in, he was like, she's way too bloated to be wearing that dress. And he said it really loud in front of the whole department. And he would do stupid things like slam doors in my face, or if I'm coming into a room after him, he'd kind of let the door swing in my face. And he was a very malicious person. So it was kind of like the cherry on top when he referred to somebody else as a black bastard. I just could not believe it. So I emailed HR and I was like, I want to make a complaint that this person has called this person a black, black bastard. And I said, and in addition to that, they've done this, on this day, they've done this, on that day, they've done that. He had even sent me an email about how naive and dumb I was to believe in God. And he sent me he sent me links to blog posts that were talking about how stupid Christians were, how dumb Christians were, how naive they were, like all the Big Bang evolution stuff. He would send me links to it. So I printed out all of this stuff that he'd been sending me. Bear in mind, me and you are not on good terms, so you don't need to be sending me these types of things. You're overhearing my conversations and you're overhearing that I'm a Christian, and you're choosing to then email me things saying, only a naive person would believe that there's a wizard in the sky that controls the world. And it was just stupid, inappropriate stuff. So I printed it all out, took it to HR. HR asked me if I wanted to make a formal or an informal complaint. Now, we're lucky that this happened to 25-year-old Jennifer, because if this happened to 30-year-old Jennifer, it would have been a completely different scenario. But essentially, I said, okay, let's start with an informal discussion. Let's start informally. So had the HR meeting, the whole thing got drawn out. The meeting was put in the diary and then they kept cancelling it, rescheduling it, cancelling it. So I said to them, if you don't have this meeting next week, I'm going on garden leave, because I think you're being disrespectful. Like, I'm now having to work in the same space as someone that knows that I've made a complaint about him, and I'm not comfortable working around him. I've flagged an issue and you lot are dragging this thing out. So anyway, got to the HR meeting. They had given us the option to bring witnesses. I didn't bring a witness because one of the witnesses reported directly into him, and I didn't want to cause any awkwardness. Another witness, we just agreed that it'd be best that she didn't come in, because she said that she thinks she'd get a bit too heated, and I didn't want that. I wanted to kind of go in with facts. So I didn't bring in a witness, but he brought in a witness. So it was me, him, his witness, 2 people from HR, and our director. So HR asked me to read out my statement of what happened, how it made me feel, blah, blah, blah. So I read out my statement. I had printouts, I had highlighted things, I had the time, the date, everything. I had witness accounts, all sorts. I went there prepared, basically. Read out everything. It's now his turn to speak. So he then went on to say, I think Jennifer's incompetent. I don't think that she deserved her job. And I feel that her being in this department creates stress for me. And as a result of being so stressed because of how incompetent she is, it's making me less professional. And as a result of me becoming less professional, a racial slur occurred.
So it's your fault?
So basically he was saying that it was my fault that he had called someone a black bastard because I am not good at my job. And according to him, me and my team, all we do is talk about clothes and makeup and this and that. And we're creating an unprofessional environment. And as a result of the unprofessional environment that I am creating, a racial slur happened. Therefore, it's my fault that he called someone a black bastard because I'm so unprofessional.
My God.
Here, HR. So Jennifer, what do you think that you can do to create a more professional environment within the marketing department?
So hold on. So now HR have set you
targets, objectives. They actually told me to go away. They told both of us to go away and come up with objectives and KPIs as to how we can both create a more professional environment within the marketing department.
I mean, to be fair, Jennifer, it was definitely your fault.
100%.
Definitely. The writing is on the wall. The writing is on the wall. I think you're being sensitive.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. I cannot believe, like, the cheek of that.
And the thing
is HR.
That's it. And the thing is, when we tell these types of stories, I think one thing that we miss out is the emotional element. This was a really stressful time for me. Like, I had just made an HR complaint on the basis of race, which is a big deal in and of itself. I was stressed about it. I wasn't really sleeping on the lead up to the whole meeting. Obviously, I'm going to have some level of anxiety. On top of that, I have to work. I'm also working directly opposite this person. We work, we face each other. Yeah, we face each other. Our computers are back to back.
Yeah.
And so now I'm having this meeting, you know, I've printed everything out. I've tried to go in with all my evidence. I've tried to be professional about it and do everything that I can possibly do. I've gone in there thinking, well, he called this guy a black bastard and everybody heard it. So how can
Close
it go
case.
wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and still he went in there and he was not backing down. And I said to him, instead of you to just admit that you said something inappropriate and that you offended me, you're trying to turn this around on me so that you can become a victim.
Mm-hmm. And he was successful, Jen.
Yeah, he was successful.
He was successful.
Then after the meeting, our manager, we both shared a manager, put his arm around his neck and said, "How are you doing, mate? That was really difficult in there."
No.
But yet no one asked me how I was. No one asked me how I was doing. I actually cried in that meeting. I was so frustrated at the direction it was taking. I was shouting. I was saying to him, you can't turn this around on me. I said to him, if you had issues with how I do my job, you should have flagged that in a separate meeting. This meeting today is about you. Do not turn this around on me. And he was like, the fact of the matter is that your incompetencies are stressing me. The fact of the matter is that your incompetencies keep me up at night. So how do you expect me to come into the office and be professional? Bear in mind, me and him don't work together.
Hold on a sec. If being unprofessional is one thing, and saying a racial slur is a different kettle of fish.
That is the point.
It's not the same.
And
My gosh.
And I remember he had a witness, and I found it really interesting because the witness had written a statement for him, and she had said, he's my friend and I know he's not racist. And I remember just thinking, everyone has heard what has happened. Everyone has seen what's happened. Yeah. And instead of HR, instead of my manager, instead of my director to reprimand this person for calling someone a black bastard, you have all somehow managed to switch this meeting on me to tell me that I'm incompetent. And the reason you called somebody else a black bastard is because I'm incompetent and my incompetencies stress you. Can you imagine?
Shocking. It takes a toll. Honestly, I don't think people understand that it takes a toll.
It's stressful.
Yeah, it really does take a toll.
Build yourself up to have these kind of meetings. And then you have the meeting and you feel like, okay, I've done the right thing. I've reported it. I've stood up for myself. I've done this. I've done that. You do it only to just be knocked down. And then it makes you question yourself. And then you think, so should I bother standing up for myself in the future?
100%. 100%. Yeah. But I would encourage everybody to stand up for themselves, because like as much as we may not win the battles that come, I feel like the sense of knowing that you've done the right thing, no matter what the outcome is a small win. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to letting somebody treat you that way and saying nothing. Like I do regret not calling people out. So I've had a manager who said boldly to my face, as God is my witness, this is the honest truth. He said to my face that he thinks slavery was a good thing. And I never, ever, ever forget that. I even remember what Weaver had that. I even remember like the day. I remember exactly what I was wearing. I remember exactly where I was standing. He said to me, he thinks slavery was a really good thing because now all black people were strong. Like physically, now they're all strong. Yeah.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
And I didn't know, like, I didn't know what to say. Like, exactly, Howard, to my own face, to my own brown face, this is what you want to say to me. I just couldn't, I couldn't believe it.
No way.
Yeah, and then I spoke to another manager who was in a different store, because I was at uni during this time, at a different store who was black, because I thought to myself, like, because it did make me question to myself, am I overreacting? Is this just his opinion? Is this racist? Is it not? Like, I don't really understand. So I spoke to him about it, and he was like, no, that is not okay. I'm going to speak to him. And then my manager, it was his day off, and I was in the store, and he called me and he said, well, you know the comment that I made the other day. And I thought, oh, so now you want to be sheepish and not say stuff with your whole chest? Exactly. He was like, well, like, I didn't mean anything by it. And I thought, didn't you? Like, so what did you mean then? Like, so if you meant nothing, but what you must have meant something by it. And yeah, it's just things like that. Had I known what I know now, I would have taken them to court. Exactly. I would have capped it all in. Exactly. I would have capped it all in.
Can I just add that with regards to the inappropriate joke that my
Yeah.
colleague, my executive creative director, made about the Black Lives Matter movement, after he made that comment, other people emailed me. So
Yeah.
my white colleagues emailed me saying, I'm so sorry I didn't say anything on that call. What he said was so inappropriate. What he said was so shocking. So I want to say to people on this live, non-Black people on this live, that it's actually important, and this is what the whole concept of white privilege is, like the foundation of it, is that sometimes you need to be the one to speak up to your peers.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
sometimes when we speak up, we are shut down. Just like when I was in that HR room as the only Black person, when someone had called somebody else a black bastard, he was there with his witness backing him. My director did not stick up for me at any point. And I feel like it's really important for non-Black people who are in the room and who see these types of things happen to call it out. Because these people look like you and relate to you in a different way than how they relate to us.
Let me tell you something. Yeah, let me tell you something. There's a lady, I'm not going to say her name, but I feel like I don't think she understands the amount of appreciation that I have for her because of something she did. I worked in a construction consultancy, right? And I was there for about 2 years, and I wanted to transition into project management. So during that period, another lady who was a PA, had moved into project management, right? And she'd moved in, I believe, with no interview, nothing. They just moved her into that role. And so I am coming to the end of my contract, and I'm telling them this is what I would like to do. And I go through like the interview process and everything like that. And they're still sort of umming and ahhing about it. No, sorry. I applied to go through the interview process and all that, and they're still kind of umming and ahhing about whether or not they'll interview me because I don't have experience. Bear in mind, this lady has no experience whatsoever. And so I remember one of my white colleagues, she called up one of the directors and said, you can't interview this lady and not even give Gina an interview. Like, it's not on. There's no difference between these two. And he gave me my interview and I got the job. And even when I think about it now, it makes me quite emotional because they were ready to let me walk out the door.
Yeah.
And not give me, not to say they should have given me the job, but even just to give me an interview. Do you see what I mean? And I always think to myself, had she not said something, because her voice holds more weight clearly than mine does, had she not said anything, would I have even sat in front of my directors and had that interview? Do you see what I mean? Because from the get-go, I guess they had underestimated my intellect. And so they just thought, well, she can't do it, or, she's not good enough to do this job, whatever it may be. But had she not spoken up, I just think to myself, like, yeah, they were just literally, I think it was like a few weeks before my contract was ending. And so, like, it's true what Jen was saying, using white privilege to speak out against things that you see, not necessarily racial things, just things to do with people who are being treated unfairly. Speaking out about it is so, so, so important because your voice holds weight. It holds so, so, so much weight. And imagine I get this job, and so I start working, and I'm like, I want to do my project management exam. So my director at the time was like, no, I don't think you'll be able to do it. And I was like, why? Exams are exams. You read the information, you digest it, you learn it, and you write it out in an exam. It's not that difficult. It's not practical. So I was like, why can't I do it? Anyway, me being the rogue, I was rogue back then. So I just went behind his back. I went to go speak to learning and development, and I asked him to put me on the list for the next time the exam comes on board, so that they can, so I can sit the exam. And I just went and studied myself. So anyway, the exam comes round, I take the exam and I pass, obviously, right? And so I'm sitting with one of my male white colleagues, right? And we started the exact same time. We both didn't have any experience, right? So we're equal footing here. And he was like, oh, have you done your project management exam? I was just like, yeah, I did it. And he was like, really? He said, the same director is pushing me to do it and I don't want to do it. So I'm just thinking, hold on a sec. we're in the same exact job, yeah? We're doing the exact same thing. We have the exact same experience. I'm keen to do my exam and to progress. He doesn't want to do it. Yet you're pushing him because you see something in him that you clearly don't
Yes,
see in me.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
You see something in him that he doesn't even see in himself, right? And you're happy to push him into it to the point where he's coming to me asking me if I can help him. And I
Exactly.
just think to
Imagine
myself,
that.
like, I'm just like, I'm over you guys. I'm really over you guys. I'm just sick of it. Like, to think that I'm not as smart as I am, like, more for you. Honestly, more for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm over it. But when you see something, you call it out. Seriously, you have to just say something, anything. Yeah, definitely my manager was trying to keep me down. Or maybe, do you know what it is? I don't even think that was in his conscious. I think it was he looked at me and didn't think I was capable. I don't think maybe I'm just seeing the good in him, right? But I don't think he thought, do you know what, Gina's gonna go far, so let me hold her back. I don't think that was the chain of thought. I think he looked at me and thought, Gina thinks she can do it, but she can't. And
I
to
agree. I
me,
agree with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think he looked at me and thought, you think you can do more than you can, so let me what's the word? Like, your career will go at my pace as opposed to what I'm
How
able
it's
to
based
do.
on her color, based on her skin, based on her face.
And based on me being a female, bear in mind this is a construction consultancy.
Gina,
So,
is this going
like,
to end?
I don't
Does it
know.
automatically end after an hour?
Oh yeah,
No.
I've got 30 seconds. It's got 30 seconds left. Anyway, guys, I hope you really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
It was nice having a chat with
Mhm.
everybody and seeing your comments. I hope that this resonated with you from my colleagues.